We are now joined by Tony Caridi, voice of West Virginia Athletics on 365 Sports. Tony, thank you very much for your time. And Thursday night game in Morgantown, obviously Baylor's never won there before, and both teams really, probably needed to work on some things. What do you think that Neal Brown and company needed to work on the most during the off week?
Getting in the right position. Really struggled in that regard against Texas on the defensive end. Just had a bunch of opportunities that, from an alignment issue, and that's not the first time that's happened. That also happened a good bit against Kansas. And I think it speaks to the fact that, West Virginia really had an overhaul at the two corners and the safety spots this offseason. And as a result of that, just trying to get this thing synced up. And as a result of that, really trying to find some form of consistency. So I would answer your question by saying it's probably, let's just get lined up first and stop suffering paralysis analysis. Easier said than done, but I think that would be the number one objective.
Tony, Baylor's never won in Morgantown. It's been a house of horrors for them. What, from your perspective, somebody who's been there forever, what is it about that crowd? Like in Oklahoma State, it's the paddles on the side. What is it about that crowd that makes it so difficult for teams to win there, even when the visiting team should be favored and maybe even sometimes walk away with a game?
There's a mysterious mountain air that emanates from the hills at nighttime. Little do people know, but it removes their oxygen. And before the fourth quarter comes, they're totally breathless, and they've got no answer. Oh, I don't know. I think it's a combination of things over the years, and this isn't specific to, Baylor. And I know we've had some unbelievable games in the last decade, but I think that Mountaineer crowds are normally very energized to begin with. And then when you turn the lights on, I think that ramps up. So I think that's been part of it. And then, through the years, you got to have good players. And, a lot of those big time wins have come as a result of big time players, playing at a very high level. And so I think that's been the key. But, this particular contest, guys, this is an extremely important game for West Virginia, as we've seen each week. And you guys were just kind of alluding to it, week in and week out. This league is as balanced as it's been since I can remember, and this is our 11th season. There really isn't a bad team at the bottom, and the elite teams have dropped down. And so as a result of that, you get this great conference race. And so, if you're West Virginia, you're sitting here at 2-3 and 0-2 in the league, and you look that there's no such thing as an easy Saturday coming up. And so the importance of this game, really is peaked up. So we'll see how it all unfolds.
Tony, we saw the news about C.J. Donaldson, unfortunately, last week about the injury. How's he feeling based on your knowledge, and what does that mean for the West Virginia running back group heading into this matchup with Baylor?
He's doing okay. They obviously have taken him out of this one. It was a concussion. You guys saw that against Texas, and it was scary. But fortunately, there was no significant, breaks or anything like that. So that's the good news. What it does take away from West Virginia is a 240-pound sledgehammer that really came out of nowhere this season. And it takes you away from a guy that can really pound it and your short yardage situations. And so it hurts, but, they'll try to do it with Justin Johnson, Tony Mathis. Those guys seem to be capable, but it takes away just a big physical presence back there.
Tony, the Neal Brown, obviously they need a win. The Pitt was a tough loss, and then Kansas at the time, you're like, oh, my God. How has he handled the first – I know you do a show with him. How has he handled the first few games, half of the first season?
He's okay. He's a realist. He gets it. And, he knows what the bottom line is, that you have to win football games. And he took over a West Virginia program 4 seasons ago that was, depleted at an extremely high level of depletion, and had to build the thing. And he built the offensive line now to where it's a capable, solid offensive line, and the same with the defensive unit. I think, a couple of things have set him back. And, we all had to deal with the COVID, but I think COVID, slowed him down in trying to get the buy-in and the culture within the program. And then secondly, we have been hit extremely hard with the transfer portal. And the reason that we've got a new back half of a defense is because, we've got guys that were good that left. And so as a result of that, not where you would want to be and not where you expected to be at this point. So he's really good. He's a realist. He knows what it takes. He knows what you have to do. And at this point, he's handled it well. Obviously, extremely disappointed that he hasn't gotten some bounces. You guys alluded to the Pitt game. It was there for the taking. You lose to Kansas in overtime. So they're closer than they are farther away, although the Texas performance was disappointing.
Tony, how much will the powers that be in administration kind of ease into the new world of college football? You mentioned the transfer portal. A lot of times that can be blamed on the coach, but a lot of times it can be blamed on not being completely ready outside of everything that's going on in college football to make sure those guys don't leave or fight off all these weird things from the outside, to let Neal Brown get his footing and navigate through those things that are tough for everybody.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
What do you think the administration sees that, and this is more of a fan thing on heat on Neal Brown?
Well, yeah, I think, more so than ever before, guys, the culture is changing when it comes to coaches and being terminated early. We've never seen the rash of terminations that we're seeing nowadays. And the reason for that, as you guys know, is because the money has never been at this level. And so we're starting to see, terminations taking place. We saw, even in September, and then obviously, a week back, we're seeing guys get knocked out because the dollar amount has never been at this level before. And so more money spent, more money and more expectations. But in regard to West Virginia's administration, they knew and they know, what Neal was dealt when he got here. That was the reality of it, and that's why they extended his contract after a season because they saw what he was doing and the culture that he's installing. But at the same time, to my point, earlier, everyone and anyone in this game knows that it always comes down to the wins and to the losses, and so they're aware of that. And at this point, I think it's much more fan related. And again, you guys know this as well. You do this on a regular basis. There are very, very large vocal minorities. And while, you guys might get on Twitter and say, oh my, they're hot at this coach or they're hot at that coach, that represents such a minuscule portion of the actual fan base. Believe it or not everyone is on Twitter. Believe it or not, stunning development, guys. And so if you live your life off of Twitter and you live your life out of the people that make the most noise, that's not realistic. And so I think that WVU has that in perspective.
Tony, what matchup do you like the best for West Virginia entering this game? Which one are you a little bit more cautious about?
Oh, what's the matchup that I like? The fact that, West Virginia's played really well at home with Neal Brown. I just think being home here, I think, gives you some good mojo. I think anytime you've got a quarterback that's got the capability and the talent of JT Daniels, I think that gives you a chance. On the other side of it, what concerns you from the Baylor perspective is the way that they played West Virginia last year. They just big boyed West Virginia last year. It was one of the Mountaineers' poorest performances. You guys went into max protection, which allowed Bohannon to have all kinds of time to throw big explosive chunk plays, and they hit. And so, to me, that's the concern. If Baylor can successfully power and run the football and then max protect to set up chunk plays, that's going to be the same concern that it was a year ago.
Tony, what was it like doing the game 70-63 in Morgantown with that shootout?
It was unbelievable, man. So, as you know, that was the first ever Big 12 game in Morgantown. And at that time, the perception of the league was what? It's, hey, guys, it's basketball on grass. And you kind of went like, okay, fine, it's basketball on grass. Okay, fine, it's basketball. And then you play the first game and you go, oh, my gosh, what is this? Because truly, if you guys know this, at that time, the way that Art Briles was playing. I mean, tempo was so fast. It truly felt to me personally like I was doing a basketball game because there was no stoppage. And then, West Virginia had some players, right? West Virginia had Geno Smith, still in the NFL, Tavon Austin, still in the NFL, Stedman Bailey, three greats that just all went into the WVU Sports Hall of Fame a couple of weeks ago together. And so that was one of the more – so that was that's a weird game. That's a paradox of a game. It's awesome that you scored 133 points and it came down to the last possession. Awesome, great, entertaining. It's absolutely frightening. You just gave up 63 points, right? And so that'll be one of the all-time great memories. I don't know if it was going to be one of the all-time great games, but one of the all-time great memories.
Thank you, Tony, as always, buddy. Appreciate your time. Enjoy the broadcast Thursday night. Tony Caridi, voice of West Virginia athletics, with us on 365 Sports. That game will have kind of a mixture of our show into a pregame, basically from the time we start at 3 o'clock kickoff, just after 6, West Virginia hosting Baylor, and both teams need a win. This is 365.